Hi, my name is Lori Bullock, and I have been with C&B Construction for about 45 years. We've been in the Verde Valley building homes here, and started off as a family project, my husband and his dad, and in the last couple of years we have added some new people. We've brought the name C&B from Michigan, where his partner was by the last name Charlebois. Our last name is Bullock. And this year we put the C back in C&B, and Chris Spanicle and his wife Rachel came alongside, as well as a couple of their kids that helped with them, including our videographer here, Chrissy. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about C&B. Having been in the business for actually 3 generations, with my husband's grandfather being a superintendent for Utley Company, which built banks and hospitals and all kinds of big projects, and he was the supervisor for those. And then my father-in-law started C&B in Michigan, as I said, and then we kept the name when we came to Arizona from Michigan so that people could reference those names. So we've been in the building business for many, many years and 3 generations. And when we came to Arizona, started building again and got things going here and had a very successful business here for many, many years. And 2008 hit. And as you all know, we all know, 2008 was a very difficult economic time. At that point in time, you couldn't build a house for what they were selling repossessions for. And so it was kind of a strategy for us to get involved in building green homes. Energy Star homes came a little bit later, but we started building green homes so that we would have a different niche in the market, something that people were looking for and were not always able to find. And so we started into discovering what Energy Star was and how that worked. And it was just a short time later that we got into doing Indoor Air Plus. We felt that it was just a reasonable add-on to Energy Star because the costs really weren't that expensive, and felt that they added just another dimension of things that would help people's lives, that were good for the economy and good for people's health. So we got into Indoor Air Plus, and within a couple of years we had people seeking us out who had health problems, be they breathing problems of some kind, from asthma or lung issues. And then we came across these people that had chemical sensitivities. They really needed a home that was clean, that had clean air. And we know that the inside of a house is not nearly as clean as the outside air is. And so the indoor air product added a new dimension to that, and those people started seeking us out. And today we're going to talk to one of those folks that kind of sought us out. Today we're going to be with Nancy Ross and ask her some questions about her history, why she sought out C&B and the Indoor Air Plus home. Why was this so important to her, and what has it done for her in the process? So Nancy, I wanted to ask you a few questions. Made some notes here. And first of all, I want to tell you thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome.
You guys have been in your house now?
A year.
A whole year?
A whole year. Mm-hmm.
And you came to us and you had been ill. Was this something that started early on in life? Is this something that you'd always had problems?
No. I was a normal child, a normal teenager, a normal young adult. I was healthy. I ran. I lifted weights. I was a gymnast. I did all of that. I led a very active life. So I started to have symptoms about 2 years before we got here to Cottonwood. We were in a camper. And we were just adventuring around the country, and it was about a year's time frame, and we discovered, well, I'm jumping ahead, but I started having health issues. I was having sinus problems, more and more migraines, not any breathing problems, but mostly sinus and watery eyes, without getting too gross, a lot of skin breakouts that were different. They made no sense, and I thought maybe it was detergent I was using, maybe it was bugs were biting me. I had all kinds of theories about it. But I knew there was something wrong, and I was getting very, very tired. I couldn't run anymore. I would be lucky if I could go and walk around the block. That's how exhausted I was. And at some point, I thought, well, maybe it's the air in this camper, because they say that you have a lot of outgassing in campers. So I said,
in regular homes you do as well.
Right. So I said, let's get a very expensive air cleaner and stick it right in the middle of our camper, and we'll run that 24/7. And it did help a little bit, but it didn't at all solve the problem.
Okay. So these began in the camper that you were in. I understand too that for a while you were living in a very old farmhouse prior to that.
Just before we took off on our little adventure in the camper, we were living in a farmhouse that the owner claims was built in the 1500s. And I believe him, because he said there were documents in the town hall to prove it. And in the basement we had trees that had been debarked, and they didn't make them into beams. They just stuck them up there. And it was the kind of house where animals lived underneath back in when they were settling, and the humans lived on top.
Yep.
And you could see how they kept adding onto it, and one wall was nothing but dirt in the basement, and the rest were stacked slate. So I did, and you know, the funny thing is, I didn't smell anything down there at all except the oil heater. When I went down in that basement, I didn't smell anything, just the oil heater, which was strange. But yeah, I started to have a few symptoms then, but I was still able to jog, maybe not at the same level. You know, I was doing well enough. I was working full time, and but definitely when we started off in the camper, that's when things really started to go.
You mentioned some of your symptoms and so forth. Just, it sounds to me like you were just exhausted all the time.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
You look really good now.
Boy, thank you. I feel much better now.
Well, that's a good thing.
So far, so good.
So what kind of discovery did you make? I mean, I'm assuming you're going to the doctors. You're saying, what's wrong with me? And what did they say?
They said, you're fine. You have allergies. Here's some Allegra. Here's some nasal spray. You know, we have a lot of allergies around here, so you should, that's probably, you know, all of these symptoms can be caused by that, and you should take a look at, have you changed any detergents? Are there any fabrics in particular that you find might be your problem? But other than that, you're fine. You're not dying or anything, you know, you just have to.
You just feel like
you just feel like, yeah. So. Oh, and the ever popular, and you know, you are getting older too. I don't want to be offensive or anything, but these things do happen with age, I was told.
And you were how old?
50, at the time, 54.
See, now I would think you weren't that now, so I
Gosh,
guess
thanks.
But so eventually you came to a discovery in the camper that led you to go, oh, what was that?
Yes, in the camper you have banquet seats that you lift up and you store things under. And we had plastic bins under there that we stored paper towel and so forth. So you couldn't really see the floor underneath there, but one time my husband lifted up the seat to get something, and he said, well, that's interesting. He was leaning way far over, and what it was a big, round, gelatinous blob of yellowish and peach colored and orange mold. And right in the center of it was another big blob of gelatinous black mold.
Oh my.
And then I said, okay, I think I know what's going on here. But we couldn't see it because of the stuff that we had. But there was carpet. It was a slide out in the camper. And it had leaked where you couldn't see it. And it just covered the carpet underneath there. So.
Common thing that happens is you get a leak in a wall somewhere. You don't know it's there. Somebody puts a nail through the wall and it goes into a pipe, and you end up with just a small leak. It's not a big deal.
It doesn't take much.
No.
You know, they don't need that much moisture.
And when you had this aha moment, oh, okay, there's something here that doesn't belong here, and you know, you hear about mold poisoning, you hear about, you know, this black mold and people having to go in and have some kind of remediation done in their homes when they have this type of thing. What did you guys do at that point?
At that point, we had the rest of the camper checked out, and it turns out that there was all different kinds of mold all over. Behind the refrigerator was just caked with a white mold. They checked out the vents. That was full of mold. So basically the heating and air conditioning that had been circulating was all full of mold too.
And you're in this very tightly contained space with all of this mold there.
Right, right.
So did that then tell you, I mean, you said you kind of had an aha moment, this is what's going on. So I know you have a doctor that you see who's a mold doctor. I mean, I didn't even know there was such a thing.
I didn't either at the time. And I always thought the only problem you ever could have with mold would be an allergy, sneezing and whatever. But I started digging around and looking into it and found out that yes, if you have certain types of these toxic molds, it can certainly do that to you. So that's when I started looking around like, okay, obviously the regular doctors, they didn't really recognize this when I went to them before, so I wasn't going to go there again. So I wanted to find somebody who knew about it. And so I found a shoemaker protocol certified doctor, actually two of them. One was a naturopath and one was an MD. I like to cover all my bases. And yeah, you can Google it.
What is a shoemaker?
Richie Shoemaker is an MD, and he figured this all out. And he's got a website called, I don't want to advertise, but anyway, you can find it. And there are certain markers and different blood tests, not the normal blood tests that they're going to run when you go to your regular doctor. So there are different blood tests that are kind of hard to get, some of them even. They have to be frozen, they have to be sent to a certain lab and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of hoops to jump through just to get the diagnosis because of the different kinds of lab tests. And they also do MRIs of your brain to make sure there's nothing else like cancer or the bad things that everybody fears. And so they can tell from that. And then they use those markers and those blood tests to monitor how you're doing. So the one doctor I went to, I had to travel to a day to get to him, and that was the MD. And then the other one is in Scottsdale. And so they take a certain training course that Dr. Shoemaker came up with, and then they know how to identify it, how to treat it, and get you well. That's what that is.
And how long has it been since you started seeing these doctors?
Let's see, right when we came to Cottonwood I started November of 2016.
Okay.
And I rarely go back anymore.
Really?
I don't need to. No.
You've done that well. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're very happy with the progress. Yeah.
Well, I mean, nobody would guess that you have been this sick. Now, do you still have issues?
Not really. Not that I don't think so. I'm you know, I mean, some years have passed. You know. So I don't think so.
So you've done pretty well.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't really started with jogging yet. I was talking to somebody when they were asking me, "How are you doing?" And I said, "When you see me running through Cottonwood, you'll know I'm there."
You got it all back together.
Yeah.
Now, part of what you did though was to seek out C&B Construction and find out what was going on. Now, your husband John works for the city of Cottonwood, which is where we mostly work, and somehow you found us and found out about this. Has it helped since you moved in your house a year ago?
I think so. And one thing I have is peace of mind, knowing that you have, because along with the mold sensitivity came chemical sensitivity. I started developing some of that too. Walking down the grocery store aisle with all of the laundry detergents and all of that, I don't do that anymore. I just avoid it. But
you make John go buy anything.
He's my shopping bot. So I think it has, and I know that having the air cleaning system that we have, I can tell before the little light goes on when it's time to change the filter.
Really?
I will tell him, John, I think we need to order the filters. Oh, really? No, it doesn't say. Trust me, and sure enough, within 2 weeks, the light will be blinking. I can already start to tell. That's how well that works, though. I feel like the air is really clean in there, and so I think it's helped me, and I have a lot of peace of mind about it too.
Yeah, I remember when we were building your house, it was a little panicky at times because it was going up during monsoon season, and there was lots of rain and fear that the mold would get started in the house somehow. That hasn't happened.
Not as far as I know.
Now, does it bother you when you leave the house? You go somewhere?
No, I wouldn't go into an antique shop and spend too much time. I don't want to to do that. But yeah, pretty much. I can go anywhere I want. If I sightseeing, for example, where were we? I can't remember. My sister came to visit, and we went somewhere, an old church. Maybe it was Clarkdale. And I opened the door, and I was hit by a wall of a lot of mold. I won't go into a situation like that. That's just tempting fate.
Now, could you smell this mold before you had this issue?
No.
Do you think it's just that you're in tune with it now? Or do you think there's something about this that makes it more of a problem for you?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, but I can tell when I walk into a space if there's an issue. And John can too.
Yeah.
We can tell right away.
Now, John was affected as well.
Yes, but he didn't get as sick. For some reason, they say men don't generally, by and large, get as sick. I don't know if that's true, but that's what the doctors were saying, something about their physiology. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he just never got quite as sick as I was. Thank
Well, I've heard
goodness.
that from other people as well.
Yeah.
And
The thing that you were asking me what led us to C&B, I noticed that when we were looking for houses, you had that. What is it? The Indoor
Air Plus.
Air Plus. So I went to the EPA site and I looked into what you had to do to get that. And they have a PDF there for contractors. If you want this, this is what you must.
Right.
And so when I read through that, I thought, well, that sounds perfect. That sounds really good. If you meet that criteria, then in my case, that's as much assurance as I'm going to get that I'm getting a clean air house. And that was just so critical to, I wasn't going to buy another house and not know.
Especially one built in the 1500s.
Especially one built, we'll stay away from those.
I would like to ask you about your doctor and how well you did and his comments about how well you have done. And even with regard to this particular product, I was very impressed by what I thought, whoa, this is pretty cool. So tell us what he said.
He said they usually get 75% of the people 75% well on this protocol. And so when you go in and they ask you, how are you doing cognitively? How are you doing physically? You give them a percentage. When I first went there, I was probably at 40% across the board. And
so this affects how you think as well as the skin rashes.
I wasn't able to remember things short term as much as I was before, and I thought, am I getting Alzheimer's or something? What is going on here? And so I used to add columns of numbers in my head, and all of a sudden I was not able to do that anymore. And so that's where the cognitive thing comes in. And so whenever I see him, he says that. He's like, so are you adding up the numbers okay now? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But so I always told him, well, at first I was, I'm about 80%. So, well, that's better than most people get. And then I think the last time I saw him, I said, well, I'm definitely, between 92 and 95%.
Oh, you get this down to the...
That's what he laughed too.
To the small number.
Yeah, he laughed, and I said maybe 93.7. So that's our joke. But that was over a year ago when I saw him. So if anything, I'm at least that good. And so he was very surprised. He said he said that usually people my age don't get as well as I did, and he said I'm going to write a chapter in a book about you because I did come so far. But it also takes following the protocol. It's not easy to do what they want you to do. You have to take certain medications to clear the mycotoxins out. You have to follow a certain diet, which a lot of people just don't want to do. You have to be adamant about not being exposed, and that's where the house came in. Was okay, I know I'm not being exposed, in this house, so I can at least, because if you have a house that you built and it's all moldy, and they tell you have to get out of there and get rid of it, that's a really hard call for people to make. And so we were lucky. All we had was a camper. Just get rid of it. Fine, it's gone. Now let's start fresh. And that was the blessing part about it, is we didn't have a huge investment in something.
You guys had basically kind of just sold everything and decided you're going to go on this little adventure around the country. And,
Yep. So that was he was always pleased. And there are tests that they do. that your eyes can get a little bit wonky too, and with visual contrast. So there's an actual test that they do. They stick a thing on your chin, and you go through it, and that also tells you how you're doing when your eyesight and your ability to discern contrast gets back. They can tell that things are working better. All of the little tests that they can do. And so not only was I doing better, but my blood work and the other tests that they were running were verifying that, yep, on a physiological level, this is getting better too.
That's awesome. Well, I surely thank you. I know you said one thing that you told me one other time was your doctor was so impressed. He says, I got to recommend one of these houses for somebody else.
He did, yes. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yeah. Yes, and I did give him the information for how to contact. So I was wondering if you ever got anybody that he recommended, because I did give him that information.
If so, I'm not aware of that, and perhaps we have, because we have had people that, as I said, have searched us out.
Yes.
Because they have some of these issues. Where they've gotten their information, I'm not sure. I'm not sure everybody would be as judicious as you were in getting on the website and saying, okay, what are these people doing in this home that's going to make it an indoor air plus home and to be certified as such? Not everybody's going to do that. But if they have breathing problems, we've had people come into the homes, people with asthma or lung issues that have come into the homes, and they come in and they visit for a while and they go, I'm breathing better in here. And I know that when my allergies have flared, and I would go into the model homes, and when I would be sitting in model homes, I would feel that.
Yeah.
After, being there an hour or so, and I'd be going, oh yeah, my allergies, it mustn't be so bad. And you walk outside and it's still just as bad as it was, because we get a lot of wind and a lot of blowing dust and all the pollens and stuff.
John notices when he's out and about a lot, he goes to different places, he can tell the difference between inside the house and when he goes out. It's the hands down. He's like, it's so much cleaner air in here, and he doesn't sneeze, and he's sneezing out there. And so one other thing that I did tell my doctor about the house, because he was concerned when I told him we were building a house about any time that you have a connection to the house, like a deck, like we have, he said that's where you're going to get the leak. So I told your husband Bill, and he, God love him, he sat there and he drew it all out in detail, exactly what he was going to do where the deck connected to the house, so that wouldn't happen. And I said, okay, great, thank you so much. My doctor will see that you know what you're doing.
Like I said, 3 generations working in the building industry, they know what they're doing. And we are so glad to have gotten into the Energy Star program and then into the Indoor Air Plus program, because we've seen in the lives of our clients and in those around us what a difference it's made. Thank you for encouraging this. This is Lori Bullock again. I wanted to do an interview today with a young lady who has been dealing with some issues with mold and chemical sensitivities, Lyme disease, and those types of things. But first I wanted to mention some background as far as Indoor Air Plus goes, and how important it is and why it is and how we've gotten here. I grew up in Michigan. In Michigan, when I was a girl, we were told that if you went fishing in Lake Erie, you shouldn't eat the fish. The fish were poisoned by chemicals that were in the water from some of the manufacturing companies around that lake. And we know what we've seen with our beautiful bald eagles. We've been told that the DDT that they used for insect protection caused their eggs to be thin. And then the young birds would not be able to live and develop to a point where they could go on and live. So we've changed some of those rules, some of those laws, some of those things that have happened that have been destructive to our environment. We have adjusted. We have made great strides, I believe, in that, in our country, in many countries, and we hope that that keeps going so that our beautiful environment is kept as beautiful and as healthy as it should be. In that same vein, we have learned that we want to provide good, clean food for us and for our children. We have learned that there are some things that are more nutritious than other things. And so we've learned along the way that there are things we can do that will help us be healthier, that will help our children be healthier, hopefully prolong our lives and at least make it more advantageous to our health as we live longer and longer. In that vein, I think we have left out what goes on inside of our homes a lot of times. I was talking earlier and I said, you know, I don't microwave anything in plastic anymore. Some people don't microwave anything at all because of the effects it has on the food, or that they believe it has on the food. We've changed a lot of these things and we're learning more and more. And I think now we are to the point where we're really taking seriously the effects our own inside environment has on our bodies. You know, in the United States, we like to say that all men are created equal. Well, that's a nice thing to say. It's a good thing to do, to treat everyone equally, to do that. But we know that these bodies are not created equal. My dad was a long-time smoker. He never contracted lung disease or lung cancer. However, he had two brothers, one who smoked some, one who didn't smoke at all. They both died from lung cancer. Our bodies aren't equal, they're different. Men handle things differently than women, especially when it comes to toxic molds and those types of things. Nancy Ross yesterday was telling us how she was terribly affected by the mold that was in their camper trailer that they were living in. Her husband, not so bad, a little, but not as bad. And I've heard that from other people, that there is something in the male physiology that is less affected by it, be that size, hormones, whatever. They're less affected. We're not all created equal, and some of us really are very affected by toxic molds, by chemicals, by other things that come along, diseases and whatever. So I thought it would be interesting to talk to, after talking to Nancy, to talk to Sarah Willoughby. She's here with her mother, Heather, and to talk to her because she had these problems as an older child, I guess is when this started?
Young teenager, yeah.
Okay. So I know Nancy said yesterday she's about 3 to 5 years out from when she first contracted the mold poison. She's doing very, very well and is just about ready to get out there and start jogging again, which is tremendous. It's wonderful. And looking at her, you would never say, oh, that poor woman, oh, she's sick, which you attest to in your book that you wrote, that oftentimes that's kind of how you felt, like you were the sick kid. And Sarah, at the young age of what, 16, 17, wrote a book that's called He's Making Diamonds. And on the front cover it says, A Teen's Thoughts on Faith Through Chronic Illness. And I finished reading this book the other day. It is a very good book, and she really did a great job of it. And kudos to you, because writing a book is not an easy thing to do. And especially when you're sick, it's even harder. Perhaps a way for you to vent some of the things that are going on when you're sick and you're stuck in bed and you don't feel so good. But the difference is, Nancy was older when she contracted this, and now she's pretty much back to normal, and she would say she is. You contracted this at 13, 12, 13?
14, yeah.
14. And you are how old now?
About to turn 18.
About to turn 18. Yay, good for you. You're getting there. And you have you had ups and downs, or was it pretty much you were just really down and you started coming up?
A lot of ups and downs, for sure.
Yeah. Can you tell me what kind of symptoms you had?
A lot of them. Brain fog and joint pain and lots of different organ issues, from my liver to my gallbladder to my spleen.
Oh my.
Mental functioning not very great. And
Yeah, you did this. That's good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. What did you see, Mom? I mean, I know moms are in tune to their kids. We were saying earlier, you know, this kid's getting cranky, this kid needs a nap. So moms learn to read their children and know when something's off a little bit. When did you first notice this, and what did you see?
At the very beginning, she'd been so active. We lived in Washington State, and she could hike up Mount Rainier and jog 8 miles uphill and do all sorts of active things. And she was involved in theater. And then one day she got sick. She got a fever, and several doctors were kind of, we don't know what's wrong. Maybe it's strep throat. So they did put her on some antibiotics and steroids, and then it just all went downhill from there. And every system in her body was eventually affected by it. At her worst point, she couldn't hold herself up to drink water. We were doing everything for her, and now she rides a horse 4 or 5 times a week and saddles the horse and does all of those things. And she loves to read. At her worst, she couldn't understand a book she'd already read 3 or 4 times, and now she's gotten past a college class already and on to the next thing.
On to the
Writing
next
a
thing.
book.
Yeah, writing a book, which is a big deal. And this is a faith-based book, and she's dealing mostly with teens who are facing being sick, just being sick, feeling lousy. And especially when you get into these kinds of things, it's not like somebody says, well, you have this kind of cancer, or you have diabetes, or you have something else. This is kind of something that is hard to define. It is something that is hard for the doctors, regular doctors, to get a hold of, is my understanding, to understand what it is. So what steps did you have to go through to finally come up with a diagnosis even?
We spent 9 months doctor, trying to find an answer, a naturopath, trying to find an answer. And her dad came in one day, do you think it's mold? Oh, I looked it up, and yes, I do. It matches all the symptoms. So then we had her blood tested, and it came back positive for 14 molds. That was all that was on the test. Several of them toxic.
Everyone she was positive for?
Yes. Then we tested the rest of the family, and she was not the worst. It's just, like you said, everybody's body's different, and she was the canary in the coal mine. And then we were in a rental house in Washington, and had the house tested, and all the molds in our blood matched the air quality testing on the house. So it was definitely the house.
Did you know there was mold in the house?
We were from Florida before that. We were used to humid climates, bathtub mold seemed normal.
Yeah.
So no, we weren't really aware.
Yeah, you get the stuff that builds up on the outside of the house in Florida, and you have
that in Washington too. Yes.
Yeah, lots of high humidity, which of course makes for more mold. Now, is that why you ended up in Arizona?
We are here because it's dry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because it's going to create less mold doesn't mean there won't be any.
Right. We were getting out of Washington and visiting friends, and had the opportunity to go into a drier state. And she got out of the car and went, "Oh, I feel better here." Oh, okay. So then we said, Arizona, here we come.
Well, and that's one of the things that I mentioned yesterday when I was talking with Nancy, was they kind of sought us out, as I think you did too, because you found out that there was this Indoor Air Plus element to our Energy Star products and homes, and it was amazing to me that there were people out there that were just looking for this. I just thought, oh, well, this is kind of a nice added benefit, Yes. When we first started it, did not even think about it being for mold issues. Thought of it more for people that had allergies and maybe asthma, somebody who might have emphysema. They need to make sure that they've got the best air possible, which is one of the reasons why we're sitting outside right now, is because along with the mold poisoning comes chemical sensitivities. And the home that we filmed Nancy in yesterday is an Energy Star Indoor Air Plus home. Actually, I believe it's a net zero home. However, the staging stuff that was in there, you were worried would affect Sarah. Just the furniture they put in there.
Yes. We have to have at our house things that have off-gassed other chemicals, or that we've really sought out for the furniture even to be no VOC or low VOC as well. And even laundry detergent, or from other potential clients coming in to see the models would have been a problem.
Yeah, it was interesting to me that one of the things Nancy talked about yesterday is she has a laundry room in her home, but she has another set up for her laundry in the garage so that she can have all of those chemicals, anything like that, even bleach, she doesn't want inside. Because even though she is doing so well, getting around those things is a problem for her. Now, what kind of effects would you have, Sarah, if we were in that model home right now and there was something in the furniture, there's upholstered furniture there, there's, you know, fake flowers and all kinds of things like that around that home. What kind of effects would it cause?
Well, it would, there's a lot. A lot of different kinds of effects. Some of my common chemical reactions are brain fog or dizziness, vision problems, or yeah, those are the main ones, but it can go in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I know Nancy mentioned skin rashes. She had a lot of those. Now, did you have those?
I used to say I wished I could just turn purple and it would be easier to tell, but yeah, I did have one on my hand. I think it was this one.
But that wasn't your main problem. It sounds like your main problem was the brain fog.
Yeah, and just all the physical, the systems, you know, digestion and immune system and all of that not functioning well.
Yeah. And it's, how long has it been now?
Coming up on 4 years since I first showed symptoms.
Okay. And you've been in your home how long now?
It'll be 3 years in September.
3 years. Wow. So, what changes have you seen?
Well, it's been really nice to have some place that is safe, that I don't have to worry that I'm going to come across all of those things in real life with chemicals and mold, and it's really helped me to be able to not be constantly bombarded with everything that's just everywhere. Has given me a place where I can heal and where my body can process all the toxins and poisons from it that's in it from our old house without having new ones on board constantly.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. That makes sense.
So it's given me a safe place to be able to recover without getting more poison and more harm.
Yeah, and you are like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
Those who have systems that are more aggressively attacked by these molds, by these chemical sensitivities, and a lot of people have chemical sensitivities. I mean, somebody will say, oh no, I don't wear perfume, or, you know, in our choir, they'll say, oh, don't nobody wear perfumes, nobody put on any hairspray because that's going to bother some people. Myself, it happens to be things like insect sprays. If I'm around insect sprays, used to have our house sprayed, found out I was sensitive to that, and so I can't do that anymore. So yeah, we all have some of those things, but you have a particularly sensitive system to it. And it's important that as a mom, and I'm a mom myself and a grandma, it's important to us that we protect our children. Our children are one of our most precious commodities, and we want to make sure that you guys are good, that we have given you every opportunity. We've given you your vitamins. We have given you proper nutrition. We have done all of these things to make sure our kids are healthy. And when you have a child that is not healthy, you bend over backwards to try and make them that way, to do whatever you can to find a cure, a reason, something. And I think just if we have done with the environment, in making our environment outside healthier, and it is healthier than it used to be when I was a kid, and it is also much healthier than inside your homes. And that's one of the reasons why Indoor Air Plus is so good, is because it exchanges that indoor air every 3 hours. You got fresh air in your home, and that's a real important thing. I'm curious, how much better are you since you've been living this life?
Well, it's been a roller coaster because of my body having to recover from our previous house, but I think I'm, 75%, 80% better than I was at my worst from mold poisoning.
And that was for you. I mean, were you just kind of laying around the house, or were you, what kind of things could you do when you were at your worst?
Oh, when I was at my worst.
How bad does it get? You want
I
to.
wasn't able to feed myself. Some days I wasn't able to do much more than roll over, and that with a lot of effort.
Oh wow.
They had to help me with everything. Bathe me and clothe me and feed me and keep
And
me
what-
alive.
What 14-year-old wants her mom helping give her a bath? Nobody does. We don't want to do those things. So what kinds of things can you do now?
Now I'm able to, well, think, so I can write, and I can read, and I can have an intelligent conversation. I'm able to walk and do all the normal things, shower myself and feed
Yeah.
myself.
But I hear you're also riding horses.
Yeah, I'm able to ride horses and go for, recently we've been going for hikes the past few months, and yeah, I'm able to do a lot more. It's nice to not be chained to a bed.
I would guess that is true. I'm very happy for you, sweetheart. And I would like to just extend my well wishes on the book that you've written. I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of young people because it does have those references in it that out of movies and different things like that that the young people are going to get. But I know that there was a lot in there for me too. So it's called He's Making Diamonds. It's by Sarah Willoughby and basically written for teens, but if you want to read the story, it would be very advantageous to you, whoever you are, to read that and find out just how you handle things and what helps you think and get through things when you are chronically ill. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.